Do you believe emotion has a place in business? Or is it a weakness, a liability, something to be suppressed in the relentless pursuit of profit? Consider this. Sometimes, the very heart you're told to hide is the most powerful asset you possess, a key to unlocking potential others can only dream of. Our story begins in the bustling, often unforgiving, city of Manila, where a quiet soul named Lena dared to challenge this very notion. Lena, a recent psychology graduate, possessed a mind teeming with insight and a heart overflowing with empathy. She understood the intricate dance of human emotions, the silent battles waged within, the profound impact of unseen burdens. Yet, when she stepped into the corporate world, armed with her academic achievements and an earnest desire to make a difference, she was met with a wall of skepticism. Too emotional, they whispered in hushed tones behind boardroom doors. Too soft for the cutthroat world of business. Her proposals, always rooted in understanding human needs, were dismissed as impractical, idealistic, lacking the hard edge of profitability. Her gentle demeanor, her thoughtful pauses, her tendency to connect on a human level, rather than a purely transactional one, were perceived not as strengths, but as profound weaknesses in a world obsessed with metrics and merciless efficiency. Lena watched as colleagues, sharper-tongued and quicker to aggressive negotiation, ascended the corporate ladder, leaving her feeling like an anachronism, a delicate bloom in a garden of concrete. Each rejection, each dismissive glance, chipped away, not at her conviction, but at her sense of belonging. She saw the stress in her peers' eyes, the quiet desperation behind their forced smiles, the toll the relentless pace took on their mental well-being. She knew deep in her core that there was a different way, a better way, a way that honored the human element. The world, she believed, was crying out for compassion, for genuine connection, for a space where vulnerability was not just tolerated but understood and supported. This fervent belief, far from being a weakness, became the bedrock of her extraordinary journey. She felt the weight of these unspoken struggles, the profound loneliness of the high achiever, the silent suffering of those who had nowhere to turn. Lena found herself increasingly disheartened by the stark contrast between the theoretical empathy taught in her textbooks and the practical indifference she encountered in the professional sphere. She saw how companies invested heavily in physical health programs, yet barely acknowledged the pervasive mental health crisis bubbling beneath the surface of their meticulously curated corporate facades. The prevailing attitude seemed to be that resilience meant stoicism, that strength meant suppressing all signs of internal turmoil. But Lena knew better. She understood that true strength came from acknowledging one's vulnerabilities, from seeking help when needed, and from creating environments where such help was readily accessible and destigmatized. This burgeoning realization began to coalesce into a concrete idea. It wasn't just about individual therapy sessions, though those were vital. It was about creating a systemic solution, a platform that could reach thousands, offering solace and support on a global scale. The sheer magnitude of the problem, coupled with the apparent lack of genuine solutions, fueled a quiet fire within her. She spent countless nights hunched over her laptop, researching, brainstorming, mapping out a vision for a startup that would redefine mental health accessibility. She envisioned an empathetic ecosystem, leveraging technology not to dehumanize, but to connect, to bridge the divides of geography and social stigma. It would be a place where professional help was not a luxury, but a right, where mental well-being was championed as fundamental to human flourishing, not merely an afterthought. This embryonic idea, born from her profound empathy and fueled by the very criticisms that sought to diminish her, was her answer to a world that desperately needed a different kind of leader, one who led with their heart as much as their mind. Her first steps were halting, tentative. Lena poured her meager savings into developing a prototype, a rudimentary app designed to connect users with qualified mental health professionals through secure, anonymous channels. She reached out to former professors, to fellow psychology graduates, to anyone who might share her nascent vision. The responses were a mix of polite encouragement and outright skepticism. Noble, Lena, but how will it scale? The market isn't ready for this level of openness. It's a charity, not a business. Miss Vera Hayes, a sharp-featured investment analyst with a reputation for merciless practicality, became Lena's most vocal and persistent antagonist. Vera, with her crisp suits and even crisper pronouncements, epitomized the traditional business mindset Lena was trying to transcend. Emotional support? Lena, that's not a product, it's a conversation. Vera had stated during an early pitching session, her voice laced with thinly veiled derision. Businesses need tangible returns. What's your ROI on a hug? Vera's words, though cutting, served only to steel Lena's resolve. She understood the language of skepticism, and she knew the only answer was undeniable impact. But the path was fraught with challenges. Funding was scarce. Potential partners balked at her unconventional approach. She faced bureaucratic hurdles, technological glitches, and the constant drain of self-doubt whispered by the ghosts of past rejections. Yet, Lena pressed on, fueled by the countless stories she heard, the silent pleas for help that echoed in her mind. She started small, offering free, anonymous online support groups in her spare time, building a community one vulnerable conversation at a time. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, a testament to the desperate need her vision sought to address. People responded to her genuine concern, to the non-judgmental space she created. They felt seen, heard, and understood. Each success, however minor, became a defiant rebuttal to Vera's cynicism, a flicker of hope in the vast darkness of corporate indifference. She learned to present her mission not just as a humanitarian endeavor, but as a strategic imperative, demonstrating the tangible benefits of a mentally healthy workforce, increased productivity, reduced absenteeism, improved team cohesion. It was a language she was still learning, translating the nuances of empathy into the cold, hard logic of economics. But she was learning fast, driven by the profound conviction that humanity and profitability were not mutually exclusive. The initial struggles were a crucible, refining her vision and hardening her resolve, transforming her from a dismissed graduate into a determined founder. The sheer scale of the problem Lena aimed to tackle seemed insurmountable to many. The lack of readily available, affordable, and culturally sensitive mental health resources was a global crisis, a silent epidemic exacerbated by the relentless pressures of modern life. She knew her small, burgeoning startup, which she christened Echoes of Empathy, would face monumental challenges in penetrating established systems and changing entrenched mindsets. Vera Hayes, always hovering like a shadow of doubt, delighted in pointing out these obstacles. "You're trying to move mountains with a teaspoon, Lena," she'd scoff, leaning back in her chair during investor meetings, her eyes narrowed, appraising Lena with a skepticism that felt almost personal. Mental health is complex, deeply personal. An app, a digital platform, it's too impersonal, too detached. People need human connection, not a screen. Vera's dismissals were echoed by others, though perhaps less overtly. Boardrooms were filled with powerful men like Mr. Sand. Alistair Finch, a titan of industry known for his razor-sharp intellect and an emotional austerity that bordered on icy. Finch represented the pinnacle of the traditional, profit-driven corporate world, where sentiment was seen as a dangerous distraction. He had built his empire on aggressive mergers and acquisitions, ruthless efficiency, and an unwavering focus on the bottom line. He saw the world in spreadsheets and market trends, not human emotions. He had never personally encountered Lena or her work, but he certainly heard the whispers about her quaint mental health venture. He believed problems were to be solved with logical solutions, not feelings. Finch epitomized the very challenge Lena faced: how to convince those who saw only numbers that empathy had an invaluable, immeasurable worth. While Vera actively undermined, Finch simply existed in a different universe, one where Lena's work was too insignificant to even register. He was the Everest. Lena would unknowingly have to summit, a monument of indifference that would test the very limits of her conviction. Lena, however, was undeterred. She focused on the testimonials, the anonymous messages of gratitude, the clear evidence that echoes of empathy was filling a void. She understood that Vera's skepticism, and Finch's indifference, stemmed from a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature and the true drivers of success in a world increasingly burdened by psychological distress. As echoes of empathy slowly gained traction, moving from a passion project to a fledgling enterprise, Lena's days became a blur of development, outreach, and advocacy. She tirelessly refined the platform, integrating AI-driven preliminary assessments to guide users to the most appropriate resources, while always emphasizing the human connection at the core of their service. The team, initially just Lena and a few dedicated volunteers, grew to include passionate therapists, tech developers, and community managers, all drawn to her unwavering vision. They saw past her gentle demeanor to the steel resolve beneath, the quiet strength that allowed her to navigate relentless criticism. Yet, the financial pressures were immense. Venture capitalists, swayed by Vera Hayes's influential and damning assessments, repeatedly passed on investment opportunities. The market isn't mature enough for this, they'd say, echoing Vera's words. It's too niche, too emotionally charged. Lena learned to present her financial models with cold precision, demonstrating the long-term cost savings for businesses that prioritized employee well-being, the reduced turnover, the increased productivity. She spoke not just of human suffering but of economic opportunity, but it was a hard sell to a world still largely blind to the intangible returns of compassion. One pivotal moment solidified her resolve, and unexpectedly brought her closer to Mr. Finch's orbit, though he remained oblivious. A major tech company, reeling from a wave of employee burnout and a tragic suicide, reached out in desperation. Their internal support systems had failed catastrophically. Lena, working round the clock, deployed a tailored version of Echoes of Empathy for their 5,000 employees. She personally oversaw the implementation, working with their HR department to ensure sensitivity and privacy. The results were astounding. Within months, employee satisfaction soared, sick leave dropped dramatically, and, most importantly, the company's culture shifted from one of relentless pressure to one of proactive support. The CEO, a hardened executive who once dismissed mental health as soft nonsense, publicly endorsed Lena's platform, crediting it with saving his company's soul. Unbeknownst to Lena, this very CEO was a close confidant of Mr. Alistair Finch, who, through this connection, started to hear whispers of Echoes of Empathy, not as a charity, but as an unexpected solution that delivered concrete, measurable results. Finch, a man who believed only in empirical data, found himself intrigued, if still skeptical, by the raw numbers presented by his friend. He began to investigate, not out of compassion, but out of a purely intellectual curiosity, searching for the underlying logic in what seemed to him an illogical success. He sought to understand how emotional support could translate into such significant bottom-line improvements, unknowingly stepping onto the very ground Lena had so painstakingly cultivated. His initial inquiry was merely a data-driven exercise, an attempt to debunk a phenomenon he couldn't reconcile with his hardened worldview. But the more he probed, the more the data quietly, stubbornly, spoke for itself. This unexpected validation from a cold, hard corporate success story began to chip away at his deeply ingrained skepticism, forcing him to reconsider his fundamental assumptions about what truly drove value. It was a subtle shift, imperceptible to most, but profound in its implications, for it meant that Lena's soft approach was finally entering the analytical lexicon of one of the most hardened minds in the industry. The impact was not just theoretical, it was tangible, measurable, and increasingly undeniable. The burgeoning success with the tech company, though still an isolated case in the grand scheme of things, created a ripple. It was the kind of success that, even if you dismissed the emotional aspect, demanded attention for its sheer statistical outcome. Mr. Alistair Finch, a man who lived and breathed data, couldn't ignore the numbers his friend, the tech CEO, was presenting. He commissioned his own discreet analysis of echoes of empathy, expecting to find flaws, soft spots, anything that would confirm his existing biases. Instead, the reports came back with surprising consistency. Employee engagement up, turnover down, productivity metrics improved, all correlated with the implementation of Lena's platform. Finch, typically aloof, found himself unexpectedly wrestling with a cognitive dissonance. How could something so soft, so inherently unquantifiable in his worldview, produce such hard, undeniable results? He decided to attend a small, invite-only conference where Lena was slated to speak about echoes of empathy, a rare appearance for him at such an event, driven purely by intellectual curiosity, cloaked in the guise of networking. As Lena took the stage, modest in her presentation yet radiating an undeniable conviction, Vera Hayes was there too, seated smugly in the front row, ready to dissect every perceived weakness in Lena's argument. Vera, unaware of Finch's quiet presence in the back, felt confident that Lena's emotional appeal would fall flat in front of this high-powered, cynical audience. Lena spoke not just of algorithms and user interfaces, but of the silent struggles of the human spirit, of the profound loneliness that could exist even in crowded offices, of the universal need to be seen and understood. She shared anonymous testimonials, stories of lives transformed, not just careers boosted. Her voice, though soft, carried an immense power, born from genuine empathy. We are told, Lena articulated, her gaze sweeping across the room, that business is about logic, about numbers. And it is, in part. But what about the human variable? The hidden cost of burnout, of depression, of anxiety, the untapped potential locked away by stress? Empathy, she concluded, her voice rising slightly, is not a weakness. It is the most powerful catalyst for connection, for innovation, for true, sustainable growth. It is the foundation of any truly resilient enterprise, because it nurtures the most valuable asset, the human being. A hush fell over the room. For the first time, Finch saw not just the data, but the architect behind it. He saw her sincerity, her quiet strength, her unwavering belief in something he had always dismissed. Vera, for once, was speechless, her carefully constructed cynicism momentarily shattered by the raw authenticity of Lena's message. It wasn't just a presentation, it was a profound human appeal, delivered with the quiet authority of someone who had lived and breathed her convictions. Finch felt a strange stirring within him, a realization dawning that perhaps his world of cold logic had missed something vital, something immeasurably valuable. The silence that followed Lena's presentation was not one of indifference, but of contemplation. Even Vera Hayes, usually quick with a dismissive comment, found herself uncharacteristically subdued. She recognized the undeniable power of Lena's quiet conviction, the resonance her words had found in an audience accustomed to bombastic pronouncements and hollow promises. Mr. Alistair Finch, however, was not merely contemplating. He was undergoing a profound internal shift. He had come to observe, to analyze, perhaps even to find fault, but what he witnessed was a testament to a truth he had long overlooked. Lena, with her earnest delivery and unwavering belief, had managed to articulate the intrinsic value of human connection in a language that transcended the cold logic he so meticulously employed. After the session, Finch approached Lena, a rare and significant gesture for a man of his stature. Vera watched, a flicker of surprise mixed with lingering skepticism on her face, as Finch extended a hand to Lena. "Miss Lena," he began, his voice devoid of its usual detached coolness. "Your presentation, it was highly compelling. I have been following the data from the tech company's implementation of echoes of empathy, and the results are, shall we say, intriguing." Lena met his gaze, calm and respectful, but utterly unbowed. She recognized the challenge in his eyes, but also a nascent flicker of curiosity. "Mr. Finch," she replied, "the data speaks for itself. But the true story lies in the lives it touches, in the burdens it lightens." Finch nodded slowly, a thoughtful expression creasing his brow. "Indeed. I confess, I have always viewed emotion as an unpredictable variable in business, a distraction, but your work suggests it is, in fact, the very bedrock of resilience and productivity. It forces one to reconsider fundamental assumptions." This admission, coming from Alistair Finch, was akin to an earthquake in the corporate world. Vera Hayes, who had moved closer, hoping to interject, found herself utterly sidelined, her usual cynicism melting under the weight of Finch's unexpected sincerity. He didn't just see the numbers anymore, he saw the profound human truth behind them, articulated by a woman he had once dismissed as too emotional. He saw that Lena's empathy wasn't a flaw, but a powerful engine for change, capable of generating not just social good, but tangible, quantifiable value. This encounter marked a turning point. Finch, the ultimate arbiter of corporate logic, had been undeniably moved, not by sentimentality, but by irrefutable evidence coupled with an unyielding, empathetic vision. It was the moment Lena's hidden genius was finally, undeniably, recognized by the very figure who represented the peak of the system she had sought to change. His conversion was a monumental victory, signaling to the wider industry that the paradigms were shifting, and that empathy, far from being a weakness, was emerging as a new, powerful currency in the world of business. The implications for Echoes of Empathy were immediately profound. The endorsement from Mr. Alistair Finch sent shockwaves through the investment community and the corporate world at large. A man known for his astute, often ruthless, business acumen, who had historically dismissed anything that didn't directly translate into immediate profit, was now not just acknowledging but championing Lena's Echoes of Empathy. His public statements, though carefully worded, carried immense weight. "We have entered an era," he declared in a widely publicized interview, "where human capital is the ultimate asset. And the well-being of that capital, particularly mental well-being, is no longer a peripheral concern. It is a strategic imperative, Miss." Lena's work, initially perceived by some as purely humanitarian, is proving to be a pioneering force in sustainable, ethical business growth. Her empathy, far from being a vulnerability, is her greatest strength, allowing her to understand and address a fundamental market need that traditional models have consistently overlooked. This shift in perspective from Finch catalyzed a flood of interest. Investment firms that had previously scoffed at Lena's proposals were now eager to get on board. Major corporations, facing similar issues of employee burnout and low morale, began reaching out to Echoes of Empathy, seeking to integrate its platform into their own systems. Vera Hayes, witnessing this seismic shift, found her cynical worldview crumbling around her. She had seen Lena as naive, her ideas as impractical. Now she saw her as a visionary, her empathy a powerful force she had utterly underestimated. Vera, to her credit, was a pragmatist. She approached Lena, not with an apology, but with a newfound respect. "Lena," she admitted, her voice softer than Lena had ever heard it, "I was wrong. I dismissed your vision because I couldn't quantify compassion. But you've shown the world that it's the most valuable currency of all. I want to understand. I want to learn." Lena, ever gracious, simply nodded. "It was never about being right, Vera. It was about doing what was right." The growth of Echoes of Empathy became exponential. Lena scaled her team, hiring more mental health professionals, expanding technological capabilities, and tailoring solutions for diverse cultural contexts. They partnered with NGOs, educational institutions, and government bodies, making mental health support accessible to thousands, then tens of thousands, and eventually hundreds of thousands across the globe. Lena, the soft-spoken psychology graduate once deemed too emotional, now stood as the CEO of a global mental health enterprise, her empathy not just tolerated but celebrated as the very core of her innovation. Her journey was a living testament to the power of a quiet conviction, a gentle revolution waged from the heart of Manila that transformed the very definition of business success. She built not just a company, but a movement, proving that the most profound impact often comes not from brute force or aggressive tactics, but from the simple yet revolutionary act of caring. The world had underestimated her, but Lena, guided by her unwavering empathy, had proven them all magnificently, definitively wrong. The ripple effect of echoes of empathy extended far beyond corporate boardrooms and investment portfolios. Its success began to reshape societal perceptions of mental health itself. Countries that once viewed psychological struggles with stigma and silence started to invest in national mental well-being programs, drawing inspiration from Lena's model. Universities began to integrate modules on emotional intelligence and empathetic leadership into their business curriculums, recognizing that the qualities once dismissed as soft were, in fact, crucial for navigating the complexities of the modern world. Lena herself, once overlooked, was now sought after, invited to speak at global forums, to advise world leaders, to share her journey of turning perceived weakness into undeniable strength. She remained, however, grounded and humble, her soft-spoken demeanor unchanged despite her meteoric rise. She often redirected praise back to her team, to the countless individuals who bravely sought help, and to the universal human need for connection. Mr. Alistair Finch became one of her most vocal advocates, not just professionally but personally. The transformation in him was profound. He began to speak of the importance of employee well-being in all his ventures, advocating for policies that prioritized human dignity alongside economic growth. He had learned from Lena that true leadership wasn't just about maximizing shareholder value, but about cultivating environments where people could truly thrive. Vera Hayes, once her most ardent critic, now worked closely with Lena, leveraging her sharp analytical skills to help echoes of empathy navigate complex financial landscapes and global expansion. Vera had not just come to respect Lena's vision, she had internalized its profound truth, becoming a passionate champion for the cause she once dismissed. She often remarked, a rare smile gracing her lips, "Lena taught me that the truest measure of a business isn't just its profit margin, but its human impact. She showed me that the heart, when aligned with conviction, can move mountains." Lena's journey underscored a timeless truth, that innovation often springs from unexpected places, and that solutions to humanity's deepest problems often lie in the very qualities we are conditioned to suppress. She had built a global enterprise not on aggressive market tactics, but on the simple yet radical principle of listening, understanding, and caring. The numbers proved it, the testimonials cemented it, and the transformed lives amplified it across continents. Echoes of empathy became a beacon, illuminating the path for a new kind of capitalism, one that recognized that human flourishing was not merely a byproduct of success, but its very foundation. In a world that often celebrates the loudest, the boldest, the most ruthless, Lena's quiet triumph became a powerful counter-narrative. She proved that empathy was not just a virtue, but a vital skill, a strategic advantage that could build empires of impact. Her story resonated with millions, inspiring a new generation of entrepreneurs and leaders to reconsider their own values and approaches. Echoes of Empathy continued its expansion, reaching communities in underserved regions, developing culturally sensitive modules, and forging partnerships with local organizations to ensure that mental health support was truly global and inclusive. Lena tirelessly advocated for policy changes, for increased funding, and for destigmatization, ensuring that her work created not just a service, but a lasting social change. Her name, once whispered in dismissive tones, became synonymous with innovation, compassion, and profound societal impact. She was honored with accolades, featured in international publications, and recognized as a visionary leader, but for Lena, The greatest reward remained the countless stories of healing and transformation that poured into her organization every day. These were the true metrics of her success, the validation of her belief that a compassionate approach could indeed revolutionize the world. Her journey from being an overlooked psychology graduate, dismissed as too emotional, to the founder of a global mental health startup that supported thousands, wasn't just a testament to her individual resilience. It was a powerful statement about the evolving landscape of leadership and the true sources of strength in an increasingly complex world. It was a victory for every person who had ever been told their emotions were a weakness, a testament to the fact that authenticity, when coupled with unwavering conviction, could shatter the most entrenched prejudices. Lena's enduring legacy was not just the company she built, but the profound shift in consciousness she catalyzed, reminding everyone that the most powerful solutions often arise from the deepest understanding of the human heart. So, what does this tell us about the nature of true strength and the often misunderstood power of emotion? Lena's journey is a powerful reminder that sometimes the very qualities that society dismisses, empathy, sensitivity, a deep connection to the human experience, are precisely what the world needs most. Her story urges us to look beyond conventional measures of success, to challenge the cynical voices that tell us to harden our hearts in pursuit of our goals. It asks us to consider, are we truly seeing the potential in those around us, especially the quiet ones, the ones who don't fit the mold? Or are we, like those who initially dismissed Lena, missing the hidden gems, the profound strengths disguised as vulnerability? The courage to lead with one's heart, to champion a cause that seems impractical or unprofitable, is not merely admirable, it is transformative. It creates ripples of change that can touch thousands, reshape industries, and ultimately, make the world a more humane place. Lena's story is an invitation to redefine what it means to be powerful, to recognize that the greatest impact often comes not from a position of authority, but from a posture of understanding. It is a call to embrace our full humanity, including our emotions, and to recognize that true strength lies not in their suppression, but in their intelligent, compassionate deployment. Share this story. Comment below with your thoughts. And most importantly, remind someone today that their empathy is not a weakness, it is their superpower.